Okay, raise your hand if you've ever been invited to a wedding. Okay? Oh wait, no, sorry. Let me rephrase my question. Raise your hand if you've ever been invited to a client's wedding who initially hated you with all their guts, told you that you were incapable, and asked you to leave and never do business with them ever again. No? I have. When I was 19, one of my first clients asked me to leave a meeting and go home because he said I was A, too young, B, too naive, and C, a woman. Now fast forward 3 years later, that same client tried to poach me, asked me to work for him, manage his entire business, and even invited me to his wedding. So what changed? Trust. In fact, this was not a one-off event. I've won many businesses, deals, and projects solely because they said they enjoyed working with me and that they trusted me. What exactly is trust? Trust is a quality, but today I'd like to quantify that for you. I'd share a little bit more about my story, but first let me start by defining trust and share why I think trust is important. I define trust as the foundation of any strong, successful, and secure relationship, either personal or professional. It's the firm belief in the truth, reliability, and ability of someone or something. We are in an economy of trust. Right? In tech, you will trust that your data is secure. In marketing, you will trust in the story you tell. In sales, you will trust with your clients. In healthcare, you will trust with your patients. We are in an economy of trust, where trust is the currency that drives our relationships and our businesses. So why now? Why is trust important now than ever? Well, because trust is currently at an all-time low. We're living in a world where people are more disconnected than ever, where relationships can be very untrustworthy and trust is scarce. Further exacerbated by the digital landscape and the rise of AI, fear is at its loudest. Right? Anyone can voice their opinions now. And with growing groups and communities, we're feeding off each other's fear, hence further exacerbating fear and distrust. But why is trust important? Well, because without trust, there's less collaboration. There's less creativity, less innovation. Without trust, the economic gears grind slower. Ideas falter before they fly. And relationships, they just skim the surface. So what if I told you that trust is not just a feeling, but rather trustworthiness is a skill? That it's not something that you're born with, but rather something that you can build, cultivate, and nurture. Today, I'd like to share my strategies and how I used to build trust and how you can do the same. Introducing my trust meter. It measures the 3 pillars of trust. We've got credibility, consistency, authenticity. This is the foundation of building trust. Now let me walk you through how to use this trust meter using my story when I was 19. Say hello to 19-year-old naive Jacinta. She's fresh out of uni, super hungry for success, very driven. She's never worked in the supply chain industry before, but she's like, okay, I can do pretty well in the real world because I did pretty well in school, right? She meets one of her first big clients, and her role was to be a product and industry expert. So how do you think my client would rank me in these pillars? For credibility, I had no formal work experience. I've studied in school, but never in a practical context. I have no evidence to show that I was in fact capable of managing a supply chain project. Neither have I been able to show him that I was an expert in the industry. He'd probably rank me at 2. Consistency. This is all about frequency. How many times have I managed $1 million business? 0. How many times have I managed a supply chain project? 0. How many businesses have I sold to, consulted, or helped? 0. He'd probably score me a 0. Authenticity. Was I really being myself? Honestly, I wanted to be as professional as I could, and so I tried embodying all these business professionals that I saw on TV. They're very rigid. I'd use business jargons I didn't even understand. I was definitely someone I was not. You'd probably rank me a 1. So now looking at the trust meter, I ranked very low. Obviously, he wasn't going to trust me with his business. He doesn't think I'm credible, nor consistent, nor authentic. Sad. And so at the time, I had to figure out a way to re-engineer his perception, to in fact prove that I was capable despite my lack of work experience. And then I realized by breaking trust down to its essence, I could measure trust. And with that same logic, I realized I could increase trust by increasing the rankings of each pillar. And so that's exactly what I did. For credibility, I knew I didn't have the work experience. So I went to multiple trade shows. I spoke to at least 20 different business owners. I asked them about their challenges, what metrics you cared about, what priorities are most important to you. Try to learn the correct, proper jargon. Speak their language. I went online to learn specifically about the industries. I downloaded newsletters. I listened to podcasts. I'd start with small clients, but my goal was to spread word of mouth, build a reputation, and eventually manage more clients. By the end of year 3, he came to me for industry insights. Consistency. I hustled every week. I knew to show him that I was capable, I had to show that I was not afraid of challenges or him. For an entire year, he would give me a really hard time. He was really cold to me. I may have cried every other day to my mom, but I kept coming back. I believe someone can be good once, but to show up every single day, day in and day out, shows commitment. My goal was to show that my words and my actions were gospel. That you can believe, trust my words, actions, commitments today, tomorrow, next month, next year. By the end of year 3, he was the one calling me every week to discuss about current projects, future ongoing partnerships, and even appointed me as his primary point of contact to manage his entire business. And lastly, authenticity. Was I really being myself? I finally took my mask off. I voiced divergent opinions. I respectfully disagree with opinions instead of staying quiet. I'd make a few jokes here and there. I'd make a few witty comments. I'd dress in color. Everyone was mostly wearing neutrals. I wanted to show my true personality, spirit, and character. I would say I was authentically myself. So, yes, there's a huge difference between day 1 and end of year 3. That's a real frown, by the way. That's not edited. And yes, it did take me 3 years. But trust had to be earned. But it could be really, really powerful. It started from him verbally telling me that I was incapable and that he hated me. All the way to him trusting me with this business and even inviting me to his wedding. Now, of course, you don't only have to use my trust meter to get wedding invites. You can use this in other scenarios as well. In a global perspective, you can use it to measure a country's level of trust. This is a graph that shows a positive correlation between happiness and trust, done by the World Happiness Report and the OECD Better Life Index. Countries with higher levels of trust reports higher levels of happiness and vice versa. Next, you'll see a heat map of the happiness levels all over the world. Countries with colored blue, which you can't really see here, but blue shows lower levels of happiness, and orange shows higher levels of happiness. This is done by the Visual Capitalist, and again, based on the World Happiness Report of 2024. Now, let's zoom in on the extremes to really understand what the data is about. Starting with Afghanistan. they are ranked one of the lowest on the happiness index out of 143 countries, with an average happiness index of 1.7 out of 10. Now, on the right here, you'll see the 3 pillars of trust. You've got credibility, consistency, and authenticity. For credibility, they currently have ongoing governmental and institutional conflicts due to human rights issue, corruption, and weak rule of law. For consistency, they have significant fluctuations in their policy, specifically regarding women's rights and education. And lastly, authenticity. The current policies may not truly reflect Afghanistan's cultural identities. And so again, low levels of trust does reflect to low levels of happiness. On the flip side, let's look at Finland. They're ranked number 1 out of 143 countries with an average happiness index of 7.7 out of 10. For credibility, they are ranked the world's best governance by the Legatum Prosperity Index, the world's safest and the least organized crime by World Economic Forum. Consistency, both socially and environmentally, they've committed to policies like carbon neutrality by 2035. They constantly reinvest in renewable energy, and they actively participate in global discussions. Authenticity, they're known for low corruption and high transparency. They incorporate a Finnish concept called sisu, which is known for stoic determination and resilience that they use throughout the entire government to further enhance authenticity through global cultural exposure. Again, you'll see high levels of trust reflects to high levels of happiness. So, as you can see today, I built a very simple trust meter to measure and increase trust in any context, from a small micro individual scale to a large macro country scale. Remember, we live in a trust economy where trust is the key to unlocking long-term relationships, high relationship quality, and loyalty. My goal today was to empower you to leave feeling more in control of your life, to build more trust, and to hopefully have better and happier relationships. And trust is not a destination, it's a journey, which means it's a decision that you make every day, in every interaction, in every relationship. So I leave you with a challenge today. Choose to trust. Choose to be brave, to be open, and to be open and happy. Choose to be brave and trust, and watch how your relationships, communities, and business transform. Thank you.